So, what really makes a big idea big? Especially in the world of academia, which can sometimes feel like this totally closed off conversation. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and dive deep into that world, using a really fascinating paper by Kevin Corley and Dennis Joya to figure out what separates a minor tweak from a major world changing breakthrough.
You've probably felt it, right? This sense that academic research can sometimes feel, well, a little disconnected from the real world. It's famously called the ivory tower problem, this great divide between the theories being hashed out in journals and the actual messy problems people are trying to solve every single day. The authors tell this fantastic story that just completely nails this disconnect. An officer at a big academic conference brought in a group of high-level executives hoping to, bridge this gap. At the end of the day, he asked them what they thought. And after this long, awkward silence, one exec finally just says it. "You people talk funny." I mean, wow. It just perfectly captures that feeling of a community that's only talking to itself.
And that really gets us to the central question we're tackling here. Why does this massive gap even exist? Is it just about using specialized jargon? Or is there something deeper? Something baked into the very structure of how academia decides which ideas are even valuable in the first place? That's the puzzle we're going to unpack.
Okay, so to get published in a top-tier journal, an idea has to have what's called a theoretical contribution. You can think of it as the price of admission, the currency of the realm. And according to Corley and Joya, this contribution is basically judged on two key dimensions, two currencies, really, that determine an idea's worth.
All right, so it all boils down to these two things, originality and utility. Originality asks, how new is this, really? Is it just a small, logical step forward, what the authors call incremental? Or is it a whoa, I never thought of it that way moment that completely changes the game, what they call revelatory? Then you've got utility. Is this useful? And this is where it gets really interesting, because utility splits into two flavors. Is it scientifically useful for other academics? Or is it practically useful for managers and organizations out there in the real world? Now, let's see how these ingredients actually get mixed together. The authors show how editors and reviewers, the gatekeepers, are implicitly using these two dimensions to score ideas. They've got this kind of mental matrix they use to decide if an idea makes the cut. And here it is. This is basically the whole system in one picture. On the vertical axis, you have originality, going from a small step all the way up to a giant leap. On the horizontal, you have utility. Is it useful in the real world or useful to other scientists? Now here's the key. The sweet spot, the bullseye that top journals are aiming for is almost always that top right quadrant. Big, revelatory ideas that are primarily useful to other researchers. And that right there brings us to the core bias that's baked into the whole system. I mean, look at that matrix again. The right side, scientifically useful, is what gets rewarded. That's what gets you published. The left side, practically useful, often gets pushed aside. In effect, academia has created a system that primarily values knowledge that is made for other academic knowledge producers. So this bias creates a pretty serious potential blind spot. If the system is designed to reward a very specific type of idea, are we sure those are the ideas that actually have the most impact in the long run? I mean, are the award-winning, quote-unquote, best ideas actually the ones that go on to change the world? Well, get this. The authors actually ran the numbers, and the results are pretty staggering. They took 18 years of the best article awards from a top journal and compared the winners to the most cited, most influential paper from the same year. So how often did the best paper actually become the most important? Only 4 times. 4 out of 18. Just let that sink in for a second. The idea that a committee of experts handpicked as the best was almost never the one that actually went on to shape the entire field for the next decade. There's this massive disconnect between what the system rewards and what actually creates long-term influence. This, of course, begs the million-dollar question, right? If the officially crowned best papers weren't the most influential, what was the secret sauce? What did those other, more impactful papers have that the award winners were missing? And the answer, it turns out, was hiding in plain sight on the left side of that matrix: practical utility. The most influential papers consistently did a much better job of connecting theory to the real world. They built bridges out of the ivory tower. This totally exposes the system's blind spot. By focusing so much on just scientific value, it was missing the very ideas that had the most lasting power. So, if the system has this huge blind spot, how do we fix it? The great thing is Corley and Joya don't just diagnose the problem, they offer a solution.
They lay out a new vision for creating ideas that are both rigorous and relevant, starting with a whole new framework for how we should think. First, they argue we need to stop thinking about scientific and practical utility as a trade-off, like it's one or the other. Instead, we should aim for ideas that have scope. Scope is this powerful concept of integrating both, creating theories that advance the scientific conversation and help solve real-world problems at the same time.
So, how do we achieve scope? Through what they call prescience. Now, this isn't about gazing into a crystal ball or anything like that. It's about a fundamental shift in mindset. It's the idea that academics shouldn't just be reacting to the past, they should be actively anticipating the big problems of the future and then shaping the intellectual conversation around them before they hit us. And this isn't just some abstract concept. The authors point to really concrete areas where we desperately need this kind of forward-looking, prescient theory. Just think about it. The rise of DIY manufacturing, the strategic impact of AI, the challenges of sustainability. These aren't just little gaps in the literature. They are massive, unfolding societal challenges that need big ideas right now. So let's zoom out. Why does all of this actually matter beyond the walls of university? Well, it's about the fundamental role that academia is supposed to play in society. It's about moving from simply being the keepers of old knowledge to actively helping to create the future. The authors argue that academia really has two jobs. There's the maintenance role, which is teaching and preserving what we already know. That's essential, obviously. But it also has an adaptive role, generating the new knowledge we need to solve tomorrow's problems. And their whole point is that the current system overemphasizes maintenance at the expense of adaptation. And the stakes here are pretty high. By rewarding theory that is primarily useful only to other theorists, the entire academic enterprise risks becoming less and less relevant to the society it's meant to serve. It undermines its own adaptive role, becoming a closed loop instead of an engine for progress. And that leaves us with a final, really crucial question. And it's not just for academics, it's for all of us. How do we build a system that rewards the kind of thinking with scope and with prescience, that connects our best minds to our biggest challenges? How do we ensure that the ideas we're celebrating today are the ones that will actually help us build a better tomorrow?